So I will now call this meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission to order. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Commissioner Ward is absent.
I'm here.
Oh,
Still here.
oh, they're not in the order they were last time. I'm sorry. Excuse me, we'll start this all over again. Commissioner Kucharski?
Here.
Commissioner Barraza?
Yes, present.
Commissioner Singh?
Here.
Commissioner Cummings?
Present.
Commissioner Miller is absent. Vice Chair Dolan
Here.
and Chair McCoy absent. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Okay, we will now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So we'll start with the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or modifications to the agenda?
No, there isn't.
I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda as submitted.
I'll make the motion to accept the agenda as submitted.
That is Commissioner Cummings with the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Singh with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and Chair McCoy has arrived just in time. She can now be marked present.
Marked present.
Hello, Chair McCoy.
All right, we will now move on to approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes from November 6, 2023?
No, there isn't.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Cummings.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Thank you. We will now move on to subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission, and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee have an update they'd like to provide to this commission?
That was the cultural arts. Yeah, the most recent city council meeting, the guidelines were presented and adopted. They had some good discussion, community input, and they made some modifications. I believe there's one item outstanding where there's going to be an expanded appeals provision added, but I believe they were approved.
Thank you. Does the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee have an update they'd like to provide to this commission?
I have an update to bring forth. Our subcommittee met and discussed a couple of the chapters, and there were pretty much minor grammar changes throughout Chapter 8 and 9. And then there was touching back on the subject of, we had noticed in a previous meeting that one of the chapters had omitted, at least in the primary document, all of the information on urban greening. So that is back in the document, in the primary document, not just as an appendix. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. We will now move on to City Administration and Park Staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for the commission?
Chair McCoy, real quick, you skipped the member reports and comments.
Oh, I didn't think we had any. No, I'm just playing. We will now move on to member reports and comments. As a reminder, this is a time for commission members to report anything they feel important for the public or commission to know, but it's not a time for discussion. Commissioner Barraza?
Madam Chair, I wanted to express my excitement that Pilbus Park now has brand-new green grass. At the appropriate time, I kind of would like to hear from staff as to how they are planning to maintain or keep that green grass, because we've seen that green grass before, and when fields get abused, they tend not to allow the green grass to stay there. So at the appropriate time, when staff will provide comments, I'd like to hear from them. And the other report I wanted to make is that our organization has almost finished planting trees at 3 parks, Mosqueda Center, the Willow Bulge Pocket Park, now I know what a pocket park is, and the Alretka Park. So we've had a lot of activity, and we're still getting close to completing the irrigation system, but we're excited to be part of the beautification of our parks in our neighborhoods. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. Commissioner Singh?
No comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Dolan?
I have no comments, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cummings?
Yes, I'd like to mention that the First Valley Air District, AB 617, funded South Central Fresno Adopt a Tree planting happened on November 11th with the starting of planting 19 trees with residents. It is a partnership with Tree Fresno and the Central California Environmental Justice Network. And on planting day, the urban greening coordinator, who works for Central California Environmental Justice Network, Julio Lopez, presents a certificate of appreciation to each of the residents who adopts a tree, along with information on how to care for both the tree and an irrigation device called a tree diaper that will help in the establishment of the tree in the neighborhoods. I mention this project because it's extremely important to understand that there is funding available to work with residents in the AB 617 boundary area of South Central Fresno, and CCEJN, Central California Environmental Justice Network, is eager to work with leaders and community groups in those areas so that the process of planting 1,200 trees over 3 years can occur. So, thanks.
Very exciting. Glad that you guys can partner with Naomi's organization. Great partnership. Commissioner Kurcharski?
No comment at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will move on to city administration and park staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for the commission?
Good evening, Commissioners. Jennifer Reese, Deputy City Manager. I have no reports for tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone from the park staff have any reports or comments for the commission?
Good evening, Ed Chenevere, Parks Assistant Director. I've just got a few tonight. One, I wanted to highlight some of the outreach events. Last week, over the past couple weeks since the last time we met, we've had 4 events for the Senior Center Outreach Project. Those were at the senior headquarters over there by the facility that we're going to be building, the Senior Citizens Village, Ted C. Wills, and the link at Blackstone. We do have 2 more pop-up events forthcoming. Those are going to be at the Fresno Center on December 5th at 10 a.m. and at the terraces at San Joaquin Gardens on December 8th at 10 a.m. And the project team is also working to identify other potential locations for pop-up events as well. We also had an event at Milburn Overlook about the Milburn Overlook rehabilitation project. That was held last week on November 15th at Norman Liddell Elementary School. That was to review the schematic design for proposed improvements to that park. So all of those events were very well attended, and we were pretty pleased with the outreach that was conducted there. Also, there's just a lot of activity right now, a lot of engagement around all of the park's programming activities, especially when it comes to holiday-themed events. We've got stocking decorating at the Link Senior Program on December 6th, Santa's Village at Ted C. Wills on December 8th, Gingerbread House Family Fun at Lafayette Park on December 8th as well. There's a DIY ugly holiday sweater at the Paul Capriolio Teen Center coming up on December 11th. Christmas at the North Pole at Pinedale on December 15th, and Winter Wonderland Slugfest Softball Tournament on December 16th. That's just a few of them. There's a lot more, and I encourage anybody to check out our Facebook and our Instagram, where you can really get the up-to-the-minute updates on all the events that are happening at our community and neighborhood centers. And of course, the only other major update, Commissioner Ward already indicated the Cultural Arts Plan guidelines were adopted as amended at City Council on November 16th. And those are all the updates I have for you tonight.
Thank you. A lot of upcoming exciting events for the community to be able to enjoy at our community centers. Real happy about that. We will now move on to unscheduled communication. Would any member of the public like to speak on any issue within the jurisdiction of this commission? You'll have up to 3 minutes. If you would like to make a comment regarding any of the scheduled hearings, comments will be taken when each item is called. Do we have any cards? Do we have anyone online? All right, I will close unscheduled communication, and we will now move on to hearings. ID number 23-1649, hearing to receive public input on allocations related to Measure P, updates to the Parks Master Plan and Cultural Arts Plan, and annual Parks Department budget and capital improvement plans. Would any member of the public like to provide comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes for comment. No one online? All right, I will now close public comment. Does any member of the commission have questions or comments regarding this item?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
unfortunately, I wasn't here when this question pertains to the Cultural Arts Master Plan. The discussion about when the opportunities for proposals to be received by the public for the arts component, I know that all of you probably know it, but I don't know it because I wasn't here. Could you tell me when is that scheduled to be open up?
Commissioner Ward, would you like to answer that, please?
The goal was to begin communicating about the arts grant opportunities following the adoption by City Council of the grant guidelines. So that was hoped for sometime later in November, with the thought that there's going to be a number of workshops and informational sessions held and communicated to the public, with the applications closing sometime in January and then reviewed in the spring.
I'm a little bit deaf, so what is the date that the process will be open?
I don't have a date. They were just approved this past Thursday, and they're not final in their approval because City Council is still making changes. However, the goal was to get it open this month and to close it around the middle or the end of January.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners have any other questions regarding this item? All right, we will move on to the next item. ID number 23-1690. Actions pertaining to the Parks, After-School, Recreation, and Community Service Parks Department fiscal year 2025 budget build as it relates to capital projects. After-School, recreation, and community service programs, and trails and beautification and the San Joaquin River Parkway. 1, presentation, overview of fiscal year 2025 budget bill process. Secondly, receive public input on expenditures related to the Parks Department fiscal year 2025 budget. Lastly, actions, make recommendations to the City Council for adoption of expenditures in connection to the Parks Department fiscal year 2025 budget. Will someone from the Parks Department please begin the presentation?
Hello. So I've got the presentation for you tonight. Ed Genevieve, Assistant Director, doing double duty. And got the presentation up. This is the 4th time that we've come before you to request motions pertaining to the Parks Department's fiscal year 2025 budget build. By way of reminder here, on October 16th, we had our meeting where we presented an overview of the capital projects that were currently underway. On the 30th, we reviewed all of the programs that the department currently offers. On November 6th, we had our partners in Public Works and the Department of Public Utilities present on landscapes, trails, beautification in the San Joaquin River Parkway. And tonight is the semifinal, if you will, budget hearing. So tonight we're going to ask you to make any additional motions that you may have relating to the fiscal year 2025 budget. And then after that, we are going to be busy for the next 4 months at the department level. We'll be working on our mid-year estimate to determine where we're going to end the year for fiscal year 2024. And then we'll roll right over from that into building our base budget request for the mayor from January to February. In March, we'll submit that budget into the city's budget and financial management system. And that's where the city manager's office and the mayor's office can really take a close look at that budget prior to presenting the mayor's budget to city council in approximately May of 2024. At 25? May of 2024 for fiscal year 2025. We'll turn right around as quickly as possible after that presentation and bring you a presentation about the mayor's budget as proposed, and then have a second round of budget recommendation opportunities for the commission to make at that point, which we'll then take back to city council as a memorandum prior to their adoption of the city budget, which should be in June of 2024. So with that, we would like to invite you to open it up for public comment. If anybody has additional recommendations from the public, we'd love to hear them, and then make any recommendations that you may have for us in consideration for the city council to consider with the fiscal year 2025 budget.
Thank you, Ed, for that presentation. I would now like to open up public comment. Would any member of the public like to provide a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes.
I have Trisha Beza.
Okay. Unmute her mic. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hi, Trisha. You will have 3 minutes.
Yes, hi. Yes, my name is Trisha. I am one of the dance and music teachers there at Mosqueda. My sister and I and a few of us, there's 4 of us. We have our Polynesian dance and music program where we teach hula from Hawaii, Ori Tahiti from the Tahitian Islands, and also Maori song and dance from the islands of New Zealand. So I just wanted to make sure, like right now we are there at Mosqueda, but due to the warming center, they're looking for a spot for us. I just wanted to, put that out there too, is that there is programming that is going on still in some of the centers and we get displaced. So if that could be just kept in mind when, of course we want to be there for the unhoused, but I don't know if there's things in the budget for situations like ours where we want to keep serving the families that we have from age 5 all the way up to 70, 2 to 3 nights a week, and we want to keep programming going. So I just wanted to put a bug in your ear to keep us in mind in programs like ours so that we can also continue the services that we provide and at the same time, support the other things that are going on in the community centers. If anybody ever has any questions, we'd love any time for you to come on by to see our music and dance programs on Monday and Wednesday nights over at Mosqueda. And my sister and I are available to talk anytime. So thank you for your time, and I hope that some budget is set aside for programs like ours where we show students instruments, dance. We talk about the history of the dances and the places that we're learning about. We talk about a lot of the historical and topography that our dances are about and where the music comes from. And of course, we teach them as much as we can in those indigenous languages. Olelo Hawaii, which is Hawaiian language, Reo Tahiti, which is Tahitian language, and Reo Maori, which is the Maori indigenous language. So just keep this in mind because we want to continue as strong as we have been for the last 25 years and partner with the city of Fresno. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no more.
Thank you. I will now close public comment. Does any member of the commission have questions or comments regarding this item?
I'd like to make a couple recommendations.
Okay.
All right, cool. The first would be to create a Adopt a Park program where other groups like CBOs or districts could participate in stewardship of city park spaces. And that's similar to a motion, I think that was made at the last meeting, but I would say 250,000, not to exceed that amount, to develop a program where other groups could essentially adopt a park, and then it could set forth what those requirements would look like and what would be expected of those qualifying groups, and there would begin a process so that folks could take on more role in stewarding the public spaces that they want to adopt or maybe have already adopted but not formally.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Real quick, I just want to make sure we clean that up a little bit, because it was kind of a talking motion. So we want an amount not to exceed $250,000 to create and adopt the park program. And you mentioned CBOs. Is that something specific to your motion, or was that just kind of a thought process?
So I'll say not to exceed 250,000 to begin developing and adopt a park program for qualifying groups.
Perfect.
Yeah, make it a little more general.
Do I have to do the motions over?
No, just as long as everybody understands what the motion is.
Got it. Thank you. Can you conduct a roll call vote, please? Oh, wait.
Sorry, so what would the Adopt a Park program, what would the adopters do?
That's what the program would be developing. So I would think if they want to take on certain duties at the park, it could be anything, depending on the park's needs. And I imagine there are groups that are already taking roles in, trash pickup or landscape maintenance or their programs. And if there's more of a formal process to identify, those efforts, I think there might be more participation, and it would encourage participation.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Barraza.
I would like to have a way of being able to augment the resources that are allocated with other sources, whether those could be donations, contributions by people that like we've done projects where we get supplies donated, we have trees donated. So if you could amend your motion to provide that it's not just limited to the funds provided from HRP, but also additional resources would be permitted if the organizations that are participating or whoever gets that funding would be able to do so.
how do I say this? Yes, I think that the idea would be to encourage other resources to come to the park with whoever's so to speak, adopting that park. They might have something to bring to the table, and that would be part of the sort of the setup of the program would be determining who's going to adopt the park, and they would apply and say, well, we can contribute this much resources to this.
Because you probably know that there is already a program. It used to be called Adopt a Park, but I think they changed the name to Love a Park or something like that. And under that program, organizations implement projects and they fund the adoption process. So, but what you're suggesting is that there be some money available for the adoption of parks. Is that correct?
I didn't realize there was another program already happening, so I wouldn't want to replicate anything. But the idea would be some money made available for the Parks Department to develop what that would look like to be efficient and effective in engaging other groups to take on further roles in supporting the stewardship of our parks. So it's not to exceed $250,000 to sort of start developing what would that look like for it to be effective. And then, you know, if they come forward and say, hey, we have an application process that we think is really going to work because we see these different groups already doing this and we want to encourage others to do it, then maybe they would need more funding to help support that process. I'm not sure. So I'm making a motion to sort of encourage the Parks Department to develop something like this to better engage other groups to take on roles, but having the Parks Department really flush that out because they're the ones day to day working with other groups and hopefully getting inquiries on all the time about what other groups like to see would be better. I hope that clarifies.
Can we repeat the motion before we do roll call vote?
I was going to say I might be able to simplify it. It's an amount not to exceed $250,000 for the Parks Department to develop and adopt the park program.
Okay.
And do I have to redo the motions?
No, those were kind of it wasn't even, we weren't even amending. We were just clarifying.
Just making sure.
And Commissioner Barraza, it sounds like your concerns would be addressed through the development of the program.
Right. And it's also wanting to avoid the confusion of an existing program that the Parks Department has that doesn't require any money. Any organization or individual in the community can adopt the park. So that's already in place. But so I'm assuming that this is an augmentation of funding for that purpose.
Ed, can you speak to that at all?
Sure, yeah, if I can. So the Love a Park program is actually administered through Beautify Fresno, through the Department of Public Utilities, in part through the Measure P funding that's set aside through Category 5 for city beautification. It's largely a program that extends the Beautify cleanup events into park spaces. So with regard to how additional resourcing could be committed to bolster or further communicate or integrate that programming into the way we market and engage, could be an opportunity. But yeah, the Love a Park program does already exist, and it's primarily recruiting volunteers for cleanup efforts inside of parks.
Yeah, I think what I was thinking was more than volunteers, but groups, whether it be a CBO or a district even, or, I don't know, a qualifying group of some kind, and developing what would that qualification be, and what sort of minimum things you would hope to see for them to be an adopter. And it could be something that could bring them great pride and bring the city pride to say, yeah, I've adopted this park, look how great it is, and we can thank this group for what they've done and what they've brought to it. Sort of encouragement, incentive, you know.
So more of a long-term relationship as opposed to just sort of a volunteer event.
Precisely, yeah.
Got it.
And I have a couple of questions. When we had the Adopt a Park program, how was that relationship with some CBOs did Adopt a Park? How was that relationship and how did that program run before it was transitioned to Love a Park?
That's a great question, and I think there are few people left in the Parks Administration who remember that time, because I think it was 2019 or earlier. But there are still folks, so we could look into that for you and see if we can put together some best practices and lessons learned from that.
Can you please provide all that information to all the commissioners too, so we can have an idea and be able to have valuable input if this motion passes on what the criteria will look like from previous Adopt a Park program that was in place in 2018, 2019.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Kurcharski, do you still have your motion on the table?
Yeah.
All right. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. No.
Madam,
Well, so I only heard one aye and one no, so we may want to go ahead and do a roll call vote
Okay.
just to
Can we
make
do
sure
a
we have
roll
the
call?
numbers correct.
Commissioner Ward,
Aye.
Commissioner Kucharski,
Aye.
Commissioner Barraza,
yes.
Commissioner Singh,
No.
Commissioner Cummings,
No.
Vice Chair Dolan,
No.
Chair McCoy.
No.
Motion fails.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion on
Okay.
something.
I believe Commissioner Kurcharski said
Okay.
she had two motions.
Yeah, this one came out of the last couple meetings, and I wanted to suggest another amount not to exceed for categories 1, 2, and 5 for conservation, for land, air, water conservation practices to be sort of assessed and developed again long-term, looking at how to maximize. So this isn't the exact motion, I'm sort of talking about it so I can give some background because I haven't talked about this before, to sort of maximize material and land use for, with a conservation lens to it. So not something just for maintenance purposes, but looking again at how we're utilizing our land and our air and our water and all of our materials so that we can be repurposing them and maximizing outcomes for conservation. So that does include urban forestry and urban agriculture and say groundwater recharge is the word I'm looking for. Groundwater recharge, carbon sequestration, better air quality, clean energy. I'm just throwing out a bunch of things that all fall under the umbrella of conservation. It's kind of a big umbrella, so I don't want to make this motion seem like it's kind of a small one thing, so much as starting to look at implementing a bigger picture view of how we're better stewarding our natural resources as part of these city resources are all kind of coming together. So I guess the motion would be to another not to exceed amount, and I can go lower or higher with this one, I guess, but maybe $350,000 to begin assessment and development of long-term implementation strategies that positively impact land, air, and water conservation. So,
This
most
is throughout the
simplest way.
park system?
Yeah,
Throughout all parks?
yeah, throughout all parks. That would be the idea.
That's your motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
unless we make it simpler.
That actually was pretty simple.
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dolan. Do we have any questions in regards to the motion? Nope. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. No.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Do we have any other motions from any of our other commissioners? Commissioner Barraza?
Madam Chair, I was very impressed with a motion that a while back was made by our former or past Dr. Apura, and I wanted to reactivate that motion and create the Dr. Apura Fund for the recommended allocation of $1 million to community nonprofit organizations, and I would suppose even to individuals, so that we set aside an allocation that is intended to be allocated to community groups. This is totally apart from the arts component. That has nothing to do with arts. It will be strictly related to park needs that are identified by members of the community, whether they're nonprofit organizations or could be, I would think that ultimately anyone that participates would need to have a fiscal agent or need to have the proper, meet whatever requirements the city of Fresno establishes when resources are allocated to the public. But my motion would be that a recommendation would be made to the city council that in the upcoming budget year, the Dr. Apura Fund of $1 million be created from Measure P.
I'd like to respond to that. A very similar motion passed exactly like that, except it was $2 million. The last 3 years, there has not been a fund for such purposes.
Right. What was the original amount? I thought it was $1 million.
It was $1 million. Last year
Oh,
was
I
not
see.
accepted. So that is something to consider. It's exactly that.
Wow, I like that. That would be good.
Is this I'm sorry, I'm not quite clear. Is this a granting fund? What is the money in this fund?
It would be an
used for?
allocation available to the public. You know how we ask members of the public to come in and ask for the allocation of resources? But without creating a fund, and we make a reference to Dr. Apura because she was the original creator of that fund. And I think that we all seem to concur at the time when it was made because it was approved and passed. And now that we are back on the driver's seat, in honor to Dr. Apura, we should set that fund again. And now if we're talking about adding the years that have elapsed, I would be okay with that if that's the direction this commission would like to take.
Well, there was the consideration for the arts fund that because there was the lag in time, that it would be a little bit larger the first time around for such purposes. This is certainly, in my interpretation and what I see in the ordinance, as part of the responsibility of the commission for us to shepherd that. And Dr.
Yes.
Apura was definitely, she was a champion of this. I think we should never forget the fact that there are so many of these nonprofits, et cetera, that are running recreational, educational, all kinds of programming within our city parks and community centers. They have had absolutely no opportunity to apply for funding through a fund like this. So I'm just stating that I'm fully supportive of that. Thank you.
Would this be ongoing funding, one-time grants? Do we? I mean, I guess my underlying question is, what are the criteria, and does that need to be? Do we need to set aside money to develop the program as opposed to just developing the fund? If that makes sense.
Yes, we have in the past asked for those guidelines to be presented to us to establish a method for the public to be able to access funding through Measure P, and that was not something that occurred. The city council did not respond positively to the suggestion or the recommendation to set aside $1 million of a very large, as we know, during a year is $40 million.
Yeah.
So $1 million, and it's actually, it's something that the ordinance spells out pretty clearly, that the funding is not solely designed to support 100% city itself programming. These organizations, people have been running these soccer groups, they've been running these educational programs and community centers, and yes, so there we go. Thanks.
I am willing to support the motion. I would like to increase the amount. Like Commissioner Cummings said, Measure P brings in about $40 million a year. So $3.5 million is not going to hurt allocating, because we have people during budget season come in and present their projects to us, asking for funding, giving us dollar amounts, what it would take to get their program, to continue their program, or to get their program off the ground. So I think that we are not doing a disservice to the public because this program has not been put in place yet. So I'm willing to support it, but I would like to see a bigger amount.
Is this a fund that the commission oversees? In other words, I mean, to your point, Chair, people come to the commission to present these programs, right?
I think that the commission will have input on the guidelines and how the fund is allocated out to the public, but we will not oversee it. We are just a recommendation body, so we can recommend this to council, and then we probably will have input on the criteria and what needs to be, what you need to have in order for you to apply and be able to receive this funding, but we will not be the overseer. At the end of the day, it'll still be city council. Commissioner Ward?
Could you clarify how this motion interacts with the one that was approved on November 6th? Is this an amendment to that
This
motion
is not,
or separate?
this is just overall, not just for the cultural arts.
The one that Commissioner Cummings brought on November 6th that was approved by this commission was for $2 million for general nonprofits for work in the parks. It wasn't related to arts. So that sounds very similar to what Commissioner Barraza is proposing. And so my question is, he seems like perhaps a little unfamiliar with what was passed on the 6th, and I just want to make sure we understand how the two interact.
Yes.
I think the part that the ingredient that seems to be important that has to be added is that we ask or provide, recommend the development of guidelines for the process that would be used for the allocation of the funds that we're asking be set aside. Because I think what happens, we find that when folks from the community come to us, we don't have a specific allocation so the folks from the community are at a disadvantage because they're competing with what the department has identified. But we want the community to have an input, say so, and be able to participate and actually apply for funds that will be set aside to be available to the community.
Well, I would say the commission, too, is at a bit of a disadvantage because we have no sort of formal criteria for how to judge these various requests, right? So in setting up this program and sort of delineating what those criteria should be, or the mission of the fund, if you will, I think that'll be very helpful to the commission as well.
I believe that we can also form a subcommittee. Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have subcommittees for the cultural arts plan, for the parks master plan. So why couldn't we not create a subcommittee if it's not violating any laws or acts?
Sure. So if the program is set up by City Council to expend dollars the way that you're describing, and they seek guidance and guideline recommendations from this body, then you could set up a subcommittee to help shepherd what those guideline recommendations should look like.
Can we recommend that the council, in our motion, can we recommend that the council do such a thing?
You could certainly attach it to the budget motion.
Are Are you willing to attach that to your budget motion, Commissioner Barraza?
You want me to repeat the motion?
No, are you willing to attach?
To amend the motion? And I believe, just a point of clarification with our legal counsel, I believe that we as a commission can make recommendations to the council for the formation of that subcommittee. I respectfully, I don't know if I heard you right, I don't think that the council has to authorize us to create a subcommittee and that we can proceed with, particularly related to guidelines for the allocation, the purpose of the fund, the type of projects, just a little bit more discussion as to what the intent of that money is.
I think what Christie was saying, and I'm not trying to speak for Christie, is that we can attach that if this is accepted by council, that a subcommittee will be formed to help shepherd the guidelines. So that's why I asked you, were you willing to
I would
attach
support that.
Okay.
I was going to say, because you can form subcommittees for anything that is under the jurisdiction of this body. So until guideline recommendations are under the jurisdiction of this body, there is no purpose for that subcommittee, so it can't be formed, but you are the ones that will form it.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Correct. So do we have to, can we repeat the motion, please?
I would like it cleaned up because it was a very long talking motion, so I actually don't know what the motion is for right now, other than $1 million for the Dr. Apuda Fund for CBOs and qualifying individuals, and that's kind of where I don't know what the rest of the motion is.
Do we have the verbiage from the last meeting, from the last motion?
So I have a question. Since Commissioner Barraza's motion is very similar to Commissioner Cummings' motion from the last meeting, are we able to amend that motion to add the discussion that we had today?
Yes, you can amend that recommendation. And it sounds like, because I wasn't here, it sounds like his recommendation is actually for less than what Commissioner, I'm like, I know, but yet it's gone. Commissioner Cummings recommended at your last meeting. So yes, you can reopen that motion and amend it to include the recommendation that City Council seek, guidance from this body regarding guidelines.
That's pretty much all we're adding. Commissioner Cummings, do you want to increase the amount from $2 million to more, or are you fine with your set amount?
And if it's helpful, I have it pulled up on the minutes, if you'd like me to read the language.
Yes,
so,
please.
On motion of Commissioner Cummings to approve $2 million for nonprofits and other community organizations who provide after-school recreation and community services and workforce development programming through our park system so they may apply for Measure P grant support.
And that's what you were motioning today, correct,
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza?
I would support that.
Okay.
And do we need to amend it in some way? Or is that as,
We will have to attach
okay.
that we will, if it's accepted through council, that we will form a subcommittee to help shepherd the guidelines.
Can I also make sure that we specify that we would like this named the Dr. Apuda Fund?
Absolutely. We can add that in as well. That's a given.
Did we add the reference to the need to have guidelines prepared? I don't know if a subcommittee would do that or whether we as the commission would do that, but a little bit more, the reading of what was originally proposed, it's a good start because it describes the intent of that motion, and I support that based on what was read into the record. So the other question is the actual amount. There it was $2 million, and if we had another $1 million, I would recommend $3 million. And then with some provision that that guidelines be prepared as to the process so that the public be aware of what is the process for folks to apply, and that assumes that the city council appropriates the money that we're recommending.
I could be wrong, but I believe that we will follow the process that the Cultural Arts Plan followed, that the subcommittee will sit with city officials, city staff.
Okay.
And develop the guidelines, and then it will be presented to this commission, be presented to the public in one of our public meetings, and then we will move forward from there if it's approved by council. So nothing will get started until it's actually approved and accepted by council. And council knows that this commission has the desire to start a subcommittee and be able to shepherd the criteria and the guidelines to make it equitable for all participants, not just favor. We want everyone to know the process and be able to apply.
I agree with that.
Okay. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was just going to ask Edward, is there a way that you could add in the language regarding naming it after Dr. Oputa, as well as the amended amount to
$3 million.
$3 million, and then the recommendation that City Council asked for guidance on the guidelines for the program from this body into the motion, and read that into the record, please.
I can do my best.
Thank you. I would do it, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, so $2 million for...
No,
$3 million.
$3 million.
but
Got
we're
it.
going to help you.
All right, so $3 million for nonprofits and other community organizations to establish the Dr. Oputa Francine Oputa Fund to provide after-school recreation and community services and workforce development programming through our park system, so they may apply for Measure P grant support with guidelines. I can
Would
ask for-
City Council recommendation that guidelines be provided by this body for council consideration and adoption?
Provided by this.
That sounds good.
I like it.
Okay, let me give you one more here. All right. So $3 million for nonprofits and other community organizations to establish the Dr. Francine Oputa Fund to provide after-school recreation and community services and workforce development programming through our park system, so they may apply for Measure P grant support with City Council recommendation that guidelines be provided by this commission for City Council consideration and adoption.
And do I have to do a motion again? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no.
Motion approved.
Yay. Do we have any other motions that we're making tonight from any of our commissioners? All right, it is 6:29. I'd like to adjourn this meeting in the name of Dr. Francine Oputa. She is greatly missed, but we are creating this fund to keep her name alive. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Amen.